The news is a little bit slow this weekend, which is typical. It's to be expected. It's Memorial Day, a day that we celebrate and honor the brave men and women in our military. I know there are a lot of members of the military in my audience, and I hope that you guys know how much that you're appreciated. Don't pay attention to shit fucks like Gabe Kapler. Don't pay attention to these pampered athletes, these pampered social justice warriors. The women of the WNBA, for example, who constantly denigrate the country that you fought to defend. Us normal people, we appreciate all of you in the military. This channel would not exist without our military. I have so much admiration and respect for every one of you. I could never be in the military. I don't do well with authority. I don't respond well to people telling me what to do. It's the reason I quit my job last summer to see if I can make it here on YouTube. Without our military, I would not have been able to take that risk. Like I said, if you're a member of the military, do not pay attention to the shit fucks. The sacrifices that you have made or continue to make, they are appreciated by people like me and millions of others. When you work for someone else, there are often conditions to your employment. Many companies make you sign a non-compete clause. This is especially prevalent in the sales industry. A non-compete clause, it's exactly what it sounds like. You're not allowed to go work for a competitor. My first job out of college, I was working in sales and management for a Fortune 500 company. I had to sign a non-compete clause stating that if I ever chose to leave the company, I couldn't work for a competing company for 12 months. Now, there are several reasons that businesses decide to do this. One, they don't want you taking proprietary information to companies that compete with them. Two, they don't want you taking business. They don't want you taking accounts to competing companies. Three, it's also used as a way to lock you into staying with the company. This concept, it's also prevalent in professional sports. When you sign an NFL or NBA contract, there are conditions to your employment. If a player's under contract, opposing teams, they are not allowed to speak with that player about future opportunities. They call it tampering. If you're a franchise quarterback in the NFL making over $40 million every year, there are often clauses in your contract prohibiting you from partaking in activities that could hurt you. For example, you might not be allowed to ride a motorcycle. Maybe you're not allowed to go skydiving. It's obvious why NFL teams include these caveats. They are investing hundreds of millions of dollars into you. They don't want you fucking around, riding a motorcycle down the 405 in the middle of June, crash the fucker, and be out for the season. If that happens, the team has a right to void your contract. But you get the point. There are always conditions to your employment. It's no different in the WNBA. We spoke about the issue I'm about to share with you guys several weeks ago. The WNBA has their own version of a non-compete clause going into effect at the start of next season. It's called prioritization. For decades, the WNBA has allowed its players to play basketball overseas during the offseason. This is unheard of in major sports leagues. The Lakers, they're not allowing LeBron James to go play basketball in Europe during the offseason. NFL players under contract, they're not allowed to play in the CFL during the spring and summer. The WNBA has allowed this to happen for decades to their own detriment. They have allowed players to play overseas. They've allowed them to miss training camp, miss the start of the regular season in some cases. They've allowed them to risk injuring themselves or risk being detained in Russia so the players could make extra money during the WNBA offseason. When the new collective bargaining agreement was signed a couple of years ago, the WNBA, they included a clause that they hoped would put an end to players going overseas during the offseason and would keep players exclusive to the WNBA. Prioritization. It's exactly like it sounds. The WNBA wants its players to prioritize the WNBA over everything else. Players, they're still technically allowed to play overseas, but if they miss training camp, they'll be fined a percentage of their salary for each day missed. Starting in 2024, players will be suspended for an entire season if they miss one day of training camp. Basically, the WNBA was tired of being secondary to leagues in Russia and China, and they wanted their league to be put first. They knew the players would never agree to prioritization without incentive. So what the league did, they tripled salaries across the league. A league who has never generated a fucking peso in profit tripled the salaries for the same players who are the reason that this league is a huge embarrassing failure. If you're in the sales industry and in 24 months you have failed to make a profit, the revenue that you have generated from your sales, it's not enough to cover your salary and other expenses. If that were the case, would your company triple your salary to incentivize you to stay? Hell no! They would probably fire your ass. Not in the WNBA though. No, 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 no. You ladies are the best in the world at being completely fucking useless. We are amazed at how you repel people from watching this product. We are so proud of your greatest accomplishment, rivaling Bomani Jones as the biggest failure in America. I have always said no one does failure like Bomani Jones, but damn it, the WNBA, they are doing their best to take the crown. Now, part of me understands the logic behind prioritization. Part of me understands why the WNBA wanted this implemented. But a large part of me, I just don't get it. You can't compete with the salaries that are offered overseas. Your league is bleeding money. The number one priority in the WNBA right now should be to make money. Please, can we just make 1 peso in profit? For the love of God, can we just make a peso? We promise to spread that peso around. Instead, they borrow the shovel from Rob Manfred and dig the hole deeper by tripling the salaries of the players. But like I said, part of me understands the position of the WNBA front office. You want your players exclusive to your league. The thinking was, if we could increase the salaries, if we could make them $250,000 per season, maybe that would incentivize them to stay home. 250 grand, that's good money, right? I mean, shit. If someone offered me $250,000 to suck at my job and it meant I would not have to travel to Russia to make money, I'd take it. The problem is the best players in the WNBA make millions or $1 million playing overseas. And I use the term best players in the WNBA very loosely here. Being one of the best players in the WNBA doesn't mean much. It's not like being the best player in the NBA. Being the best player in the WNBA is being the best of the worst. It would be like Bomani Jones bragging about, I have the #1 podcast on the Woke U platform. Ooh, that's great. You're competing with Walter's White Privilege and Leah's Lost Limb, a podcast following the journey of Leah Thomas as he goes through the process of losing his propeller. A few weeks ago, I told you guys the WNBA was at a crossroads. If the front office stands by prioritization, which they should, they're going to lose the best of the worst. They're going to lose the best players they have in their league. Now, from a business perspective, this is not exactly a bad thing. Players like Brittany Griner, Breanna Stewart, they're not drawing ratings anyway. So if Seattle loses Breanna Stewart, they save $250,000 a year and draw the same ratings, which won't be measured by Nielsen because no one is fucking watching. The problem, though, it's going to be bad PR for the WNBA. The mainstream media is going to turn on them. How dare you force these players to leave America to earn their living overseas? This is another case of corporate greed. First of all, no one is forcing players to do anything. They agreed to prioritization. They agreed to be exclusive to the WNBA. They signed the collective bargaining agreement. If anyone is being greedy in this scenario, it's the players, not the league. The unintended consequence of prioritization, it is highlighting the entitlement prevalent throughout the WNBA. For years, the women of the WNBA have been fighting for what they call fair pay. We deserve to be paid better. We are stars. I have 27,000 followers on Twitter and I drive a Dodge Stratus. You want to talk about fair pay? Let's talk about fair pay for a second. Fair pay in the WNBA would be $0 Players should be paying the fucking league for the right to play. The WNBA is no different than Little League Baseball, except for the fact Little League Baseball actually makes a profit. The reason they make a profit, players are required to pay to play. In the real world, if you don't generate profit, you don't make money. The WNBA compromised with the players. We will pay you more money up front that you haven't earned. We will pay you more money that you're not worth because you provide absolutely no value. We will pay you more money, but in a couple of years, we want you to be loyal to us. We want you to be loyal to the WNBA. The players gladly accepted the money, but now that the time has come for the prioritization policy to be implemented, WNBA players are pushing back. Entitlement 101. Obviously, they took the course at Woke U, taught by the queen of entitlement, Katie Nolan. Katie Nolan has a lot in common with WNBA players. They're both paid six figures to be completely useless. Although I will say this, Katie Nolan produces some great carbon dioxide. I was struggling to grow grass in certain areas of my front yard, called up Katie Nolan, had her breathe on it for a few hours. Now I got to cut the fucking grass twice a week. The reason WNBA players have this false sense of entitlement, no one ever holds them accountable. Mainstream media doesn't hold them accountable. WNBA front office doesn't hold them accountable. They're not held accountable on social media. Hell, the only person that holds the WNBA accountable is me. I would say prioritization will hasten the demise of this dump, but I don't think we're going to get that lucky. For one, I believe the WNBA front office will ratify the CBA. Once the threat of losing so-called star players becomes real, I think they'll bend the rules to accommodate them. But two, the WNBA will not cease to exist until the NBA and other woke corporations quit giving them money. That is not going to happen anytime soon. Got to keep those ESG scores up. We can't allow this league to die. We will be called misogynist. The women of the WNBA deserve the right to continue growing their mustache on national television. There are plenty of reasons to hate this dump. But one of my biggest problems with the WNBA, this league is filled with America-hating, entitled shit fucks. If you earn more money playing basketball in China and Russia, go over there and play. But make sure you book yourself a one-way ticket. We don't want you back here. I hear Brittany Griner has plenty of room in her cell and the rent is free. But let me know what you think. The entitlement of WNBA players. They initially accept prioritization. They take triple the money. Then when the time comes for them to fulfill their end of the compromise, they bitch and complain about unfair treatment. Sound off in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com, KC_BTL84 on Twitter. I'll see you guys tomorrow.